What's up guys, it's Brad from Light Architect here. Today I'm going to be doing some conceptual breakdowns inside of Blender for some of the shots we've used in the CityBuilder 3D add-on trailer for Blender. As you probably know if you're watching this video, the CityBuilder 3D add-on has been released on Blender Market just yesterday. Be sure to check it out. Be sure to check out our add-on trailer. That said, a lot of the concepts I cover in this video will be useful whether or not you download the add-on from Blender Market, but we do hope you like it regardless, and let's get started. Alright, so first we're going to be breaking down one of my personal favorites from our trailer, this kind of futuristic derelict city flyover shot. And this shot was kind of inspired by the movie Dread. I don't know if anyone out there have seen it. It's I think that film was made in... It's a 2012 movie. It's a sci-fi thriller. The visual effects breakdown for this movie was part of our inspiration for building some of the assets in the plugin we've made. Definitely check out the Dread visual effects breakdown. It has some pretty awesome stuff in it. But yeah, let's get started in Blender. So here we are inside of Blender. This is the shot setup here. So essentially what this scene is comprised of is a background plate, which is essentially an image that we've imported and projected onto geometry to create some depth in the background. We've projected that image onto this piece of geometry here, and then we've created a material that is an emission layer, so that actually isn't being lit by anything. It's just emitting the light of the image and creating just a background plate for us. So that's our background layer, and then our foreground elements here, we have essentially two concepts that we're using to create this scene. The first one is essentially a plane that we've created a particle system for, and on that particle system we have used a collection of CityBuilder 3D assets to distribute kind of a base layer of low-lying buildings for our city. And I think we've used maybe essentially just 3 or 4 different city assets. Of course, the more assets you use distributed across this particle system plane, the better it's going to look because it's going to have more variety. Another trick that we've learned to create this base layer of assets for your cities is to increase the scale randomness. So give your building some random scale so that not all of the same building is the exact same height. So that's one little trick. At the end of this video, I'm going to show exactly how you can create a particle system and distribute your assets across it, but let's continue with the rest of the breakdown on this specific shot. So after you build a basic particle system generating some buildings across a plane, our second step is to build more specific aspects of the city that we want. So essentially what we've done here is we've imported a few of the taller building assets from our Cyberpunk Future city asset pack, and we've just kind of placed them in various spots in our scene in the foreground as our camera is going to rise above it and go over our main building here. So let me just show you what that is comprised of. One of the ways I like to work when I was creating some of these cinematic shots for this trailer is actually by splitting our screen here. And what we can do is we can view the whole scene on the left panel here, and then we can view through the camera on this right panel here. So as you can see, this is our shot in 3D form without being rendered, and if we scroll through here, we can see how everything is working for us. And it's just kind of craning over our main building in the center here. This specific shot we did use the cable cam cinematic movement rig for. That cinematic movement rig is of course going to come for free in the CityBuilder download. You can add it to your scene right here with the cable cam plugin. You just import it and start creating some cool camera moves. How this rig works is you animate it with 2 controls. You animate the position of the rig with this control right here. Essentially you animate the position dragging around this main control here, and then you can animate that of course, and then the second control you would animate would be this empty right here, which is your pan and tilt control, which essentially tells your camera where you want it to look at any given time. As I said, that comes for free in the CityBuilder download. If you want something more specific, of course you can animate your own camera as well, but that is a nice bonus. Alright, so before we go in through the conceptual breakdown of the next shot, I want to show you one of the most important aspects of any shot you're creating, the lighting. So what I've done to light this scene here specifically is I've added 1 sun lamp to the scene. I'm not sure the intensity of it. It's 1.5. I've warmed it up a little bit in the color just so it has a little more sunlight feel. And then I've also added a very basic sky to the scene as well. It's simply just sky texture. And I think I played around with the turbidity a little bit. And essentially that's pretty much it. Depending on the background plate you use for your background, you might have to play around and adjust the sun in your scene as well as the sky in order to match your background plate to how the actual CG is being lit. Anyways guys, let's move on to the next blend file. Alright, so this is our second Cyberpunk Future Blender project that we made for the trailer. This project uses some very similar concepts that I just showed you in the other file. What I did in this project was, again, create a plane, create a particle system, and then attach a bunch of the CityBuilder Future assets to that particle system as a collection. As you can see, I've used some of the taller buildings in this particle system this time versus the last one where we used that particle system to create a very low-lying background of assets, but this is just one other way to do it. And essentially what we've done here with the camera is just done a little boom up through our city here. And this is a very simple camera animation, which is one of the reasons why we didn't use the cable cam cinematic movement rig, because this is very easy to do, just animating the camera facing straight down on the Z-axis to go upward. So this is pretty much it. I did add 3 suns to the scene here just to create some more rays of light coming through the city, because there were so many different buildings in this specific scene. But this was actually a pretty easy project to create. I essentially just imported a plane, added a texture to it of kind of a city ground texture, and then distributed, I think, maybe 10 of the CityBuilder 3D assets of the 45 across it in various ways. And then, of course, on all of these projects, we've rendered out a mist pass so that we can create some atmosphere as the camera moves out and that atmosphere gets thicker and thicker. And then in compositing, we've added some more layers of clouds as well, as you can see that we added in the trailer. But yeah, this was a pretty cool shot. I also kept this. I also added another background plate, even though we don't see it. Sometimes it's nice to have some environmental reflection. So ideally, actually, this would wrap all the way around the entire scene. But when I was doing test renders, I figured it looked really good already, so I decided to go with it. And yeah, actually, as you can see on the side here, you can see a few of the buildings we've imported, and these aren't actually in our scene, but we've added these to our collection that we've distributed as a particle system along our plane here. Also, like I did in the previous video, I've created a sky to create some ambience in the environment, as well as our 3 suns, as I mentioned earlier. Anyways guys, that's it for this one, and let's go on to the next blend file. Alright, so this is our third Cyberpunk Future City project that we created for the trailer, and essentially this is literally a duplicate of the last project. The only thing that's different is I changed a little bit of the distribution on the particle plane here, distributing the CityBuilder 3D assets, and then I've of course changed the animation of the camera over the course of the animation. So essentially this one is just moving across the entire plane. I don't know if y'all can see that. Let me open this up. This one, the camera is just very simply tracking over the city, which I thought ended up creating a pretty cool shot. Same kind of concept in the lighting, side lit using the sun, ambient sky in the environment tab here, and yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. In so many of these guys, it's just going to your CityBuilder tab, importing the asset. You can import the asset pretty quickly, just kind of click it, it comes into your scene, place it however you like, or add a bunch of assets to your scene and put them into a particle system to distribute them, and yeah, you got yourself a pretty cool setup in a fairly short amount of time. Anyways guys, let's go to the next project. Alright, so here we have our 4th project that we made for the trailer, and as you can see, this was quite a messy setup. I don't recommend this. However, I will give you a breakdown of what I did to create this. Again, what we've done here is we have several planes with particle systems attached to them, attached to groups of a bunch of the Cyberpunk Future assets that we've added through the CityBuilder 3D add-on here. Why we have so many of them in kind of different spots is because we're trying to fill in the space of our background for this very specific shot. So it takes the computer a lot to just distribute a massive amount of assets across a very big area. So you want to try to limit that as much as possible. The more we increase a specific plane in size, the more it's going to take the computer to essentially distribute those particles. So what I've done here, instead of making one big particle system, I have 3 smaller ones just filling in the space for our specific shot here on the right. And what the shot is, as you can see, and I'm sure you remember from the trailer, is this shot going up and around this kind of helicopter pad on top of one of our main future building assets. And as you can see, our background, we always want our background to have some kind of asset in it, in addition to these kind of half sphere background plates that's essentially just a sky image projected onto an emission plane, like I showed you in the first blend file breakdown. So this is a very similar setup. It's a little more specific. Some of these buildings I've placed specifically and they aren't on particle systems, but essentially what we've done here is fill in the space of the background with city assets on a particle system, randomly distributed. Another thing that makes this shot really cool is when you look at the camera specifically as it's swooping around the main building. What we have here to create that crazy parallax in the background is we've put a very long lens on the camera here. So if you go and click on the camera tab over here on the right side, you can see that we have a focal length of 180 millimeters, and what that's going to do is it's going to compress all the space and make the background move much faster than if you were on a very wide lens. One other thing you can do is check the depth of field, which is pretty cool if you want to get the camera to focus on only one object. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. As you can see, if we scroll through it here, this is essentially what our camera is doing here on the left side. It's just wrapping around our building. Alright guys, so before we end this video, as promised, I'm going to show you how to add CityBuilder assets to your scene and add them to a particle system so you can very easily create the base layer of your city before you customize it with very specific positioning of your main buildings. So anyways, let's go ahead and open up Blender, and I'm going to delete everything, of course. And then I'm going to go ahead and press Shift A and add a plane. Go ahead and scale it up. Then what we want to do is add a few of the CityBuilder assets. So let's go to our CityBuilder tab here on the right side. Now we'll go ahead and we'll use the Sci-Fi Future assets as I've been showing you in this video. I'll go ahead and just add a few of the smaller assets in addition to a few of the larger ones. So I'll just do maybe a bunch of these. One of the future ones. That's a medium asset there. And all of these buildings have already been textured and they're ready to go and ready to render pretty much. So perfect for backgrounds of your 3D art, or essentially just doing what we're doing right now and creating a kind of city flyover. So these are some pretty good assets. Maybe we'll add a few more of the taller buildings in here. We could add all 15 if we wanted to. We could add all 45 if your computer can handle it. That is one thing to note. If your computer is really old, it's going to take some time to import these into your scene. Right now I'm using a MacBook Pro from 2017. It handles it pretty well until I start adding about 30 of the assets. Then it starts really slowing down. So it depends on your computer. Yeah, this should be a good collection of buildings to add to our particle system and make a pretty cool looking base layer for a city if you want to make a cool little flyover. So let's just go ahead and move these away from our primary scene here. And what we're going to do is with all of these selected, we're just going to press M and make them a new collection. We'll call them City for Particle System. Okay. And now what we'll do is we'll select our plane here on the left side. And then we'll go ahead and scale it up a little bit. And we'll go to the particle tab here and make this a new particle system. And now we'll change this to the hair emitter. And then we'll go to render. And then under render as, we'll change this to collection. And then there are a lot of different collection settings you can change for a very custom result. But in this case, we'll just choose to instance our main City for Particle System collection. And now, as you can see, our assets have been distributed across our plane here. Obviously, they are not the right scale, so let's go ahead and change that. You can increase the scale of your assets right here. Maybe we'll try 1.1. Maybe we'll try just normal 1. That's way too much. Maybe 0.4. You can also scale it up a little bit. Maybe 0.3. Something like that. Another thing you can do is you can increase the randomness of it. So we might put that at 1. Maybe not. If you put it too high, it starts looking kind of weird. And then you can increase the number of particles as well. Maybe we'll put it at like 2,000. We've generated a kind of cool city. Probably need to add some more assets to this to make it a little bit less uniform. As you can see right now, you can obviously tell that we're duplicating a lot of the assets. And essentially, yeah, that's how you do it. You essentially create a particle system for the base layer. Normally I wouldn't use the tallest buildings for our particle system. I would place the tall buildings specifically in the scene where I want them, and then use the small and medium sized buildings on the particle system as a very base layer for the city, so the duplicated buildings aren't as noticeable. Anyways guys, that's long enough for this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. As always, feel free to leave any comments if you have any questions or suggestions in the comment section below. Check out CityBuilder 3D on Blender Market. Check out our trailer, and I'll see you guys next time.